in the right place today if you are here to think together and kind of experiment on how can we empower our people more. And just a bit of a punchy background, you know, we are going back to our offices here in London, certainly many places around the world, and it could feel a bit disempowering to work in such crowded, busy office buildings. And I believe that there will be lots of opportunity to unleash ourselves, unleash collaboration, and also intrinsic motivation if we think about how we can make decisions better. So I am Andrea Darabos. I am a business agility consultant. I have my own UK-based company called Lean Advantage, and I am also an associate at LIS Consulting. And I'm really glad to be taking part in these webinars. And thank you, Bram, and the rest of the team for organizing them really professionally. So I'm excited to go through. And a few more details about me with slightly shorter hair. And a few years back in Barcelona, this picture was taken on a team retreat, I still remember. I work with teams and leadership teams in particular on business innovation and how we can develop products at scale. What I specialize in is heavily regulated industries, so investment banking, retail banking, also surveillance, risk management in particular, telecom industries and automotive manufacturing, and most recently also FMCG. I would be very curious also to hear, for those of you joining live in the chat, if you share your industry or perhaps even your role. We can also see your profiles here. Thank you for joining. I'm already aware that many of you come from a technical or digital background. We have many of you in product roles or architect roles. You are all welcome. But I also know that some of you joined more from a change management or community development background. So if you work more in the non-profit, government or community sector, you are also warmly welcome. And hopefully you will also learn something valuable to you. And if I haven't said yet, I am by no means the most well-known expert in decision-making. I have experience in these digital industries and larger organizations, and I will be delighted to exchange with you after this talk offline, via LinkedIn, or even face-to-face. So we'll be curious to hear your thoughts. So what is the challenge? Why this topic? Why decision-making? In my experience, in day-to-day consulting, coaching, mentoring organizations, we focus a lot on operations. We have KPIs, we have targets, and we are really in the heads down in the delivery. And you hear things like, let's execute this project and let's be efficient and make decisions fast. But often, in order to be able to decide fast and actually deliver value to our customers, we do need to think about our governance. And many teams and leadership teams I work with are not fully in control, for example, of their budgeting process. They depend on the finance department or the wider organization to go through securing their funding every year. And governance in terms of also going to market, releasing products or services is often also very much a challenge. So these opportunities are often highly centralized. And on top of this, many of the decisions, especially when we centralize them in these organizations, partly due to the biases and also the lack of diversity in boardrooms or management teams, the decisions themselves become unfair or biased and not really ethical, not in every case. So we need to be aware that this is also an area to improve. Who makes those decisions? The more diverse the crowd who makes decisions, the wiser and more fairer those decisions will be. And this is also very important to my heart, and hopefully it resonates with you. And last but not least, it's about speed. Being slow and expensive to adapt, and also demotivating to go through these long approval processes and decision-making cycles. So before we get depressed, there is a way out, and I will share a few thoughts with you. Starting with this study, it makes financial sense to stay tuned into this webinar, and also if you are investing, to look for organizations who have unlocked their decision-making and decentralized it. So improving the elements of your decision-making process, your quality of decision-making, the speed of decision-making, and also the way you implement them. It has been proven that this decision-making effectiveness in organizations has a direct correlation with financial performance. And the study you will find by Googling Decision Effectiveness Score by Bain & Company. Or simply drop me a note and I will send you the links in this presentation. So it's worth really investigating this. And also the study found that apart from about 4% outliers, a few organizations who do decision-making really well and reliably well, other organizations have a long range to improve. So there is definitely things we can learn and continue to experiment with. So what we are also searching for is the human element, is how do we unleash ourselves. So this book, many of you have read it, by Daniel Pink, Drive, is a summary of lots of studies done on what really motivates us. What are the intrinsic qualities of work that we can build in that will make us feel our work is worthwhile and meaningful. We become self-directed in our work, so we can make our own decisions in how and what we work on. To give us a sense of progress and mastery, the sense that we are learning and progressing towards our goals is very important to us. And last but not least, purpose. How do we contribute to the betterment of the world, of people, and the earth around us? So really tapping into these drivers that we all have, we should really stand up for and demand better decision-making in our organizations. So let's work on this purpose together. And feel free to, in the chat, to continue to comment if you are in front of your laptop and can type in what resonates with you. I'm also seeing your comments live. So we sometimes set up our organizations as if we had this centralized brain neuron or the cleverest AI in the world who would make all our decisions kind of high up in a hierarchy in one place. This centralized decision making in a hierarchical organization, indeed, it's not really the best way to access collective expertise when we centralize according to, for example, seniority in an organization. Often in these organizational cultures or status quos, we find that risky or tricky decisions, in fact, many of them, are escalated up to senior managers, and this causes lots of delay or even no action. And David Marquet, who we will see later on in this presentation, he also talks about the language. We can observe that we may have a problem with decision making if we hear people say, use the language of permission. For example, can we go ahead and do this? Can we get your permission or approval to go ahead? Or seeking compliance. Are we safe to perform action X? Are we safe to do something? So seeking permission, waiting for approval is something we could get used to, and the language will be very telling. And indeed, not wanting to upset you because it's controversial now to put a quote from Elon Musk, but still the intent of the quote is more the wisdom inside it, no matter of the current event. What matters nowadays in organizations really is the pace of innovation. And what this means is that those companies who will be able to faster in their decision-making will be able to compete better. So decision-making could be the fuel for innovation. When we look at nature for inspiration, how do natural ecosystems make decisions? And some of you come from a system thinking or complexity science background. Please help me here. Yeah, we are wired for all living creatures, wired for working in a collective intelligence manner. We have distributed intelligence, we observe the environment, and we can very quickly adapt our behavior. And I really wish that we could tap into our natural wisdom in organizations, so we could be self-directed in our decision-making in a more natural system. We could make small, continuous, or evolutionary moves. And often when we find ourselves in communities or smaller organizations, more agile environments, we may also notice that the language we use when we are enabled to make decisions, we may say, I will make this. Are you okay? Any objections? I will just go ahead and do this. Or even we may be asking curious questions which can unleash lots of experimentation and decisions. We may be evolving our next steps with curiosity. For example, how might we solve for X? So how can we create these communities which are more like in nature, more systemic, more adaptive, and have more distributed intelligence? And back to the wisdom of the previously leading high-performing Navy captain who led a US nuclear submarine. And he wrote a book also, many books on leadership, in fact. He says that don't move information to authority, which we often do in hierarchical organizations. We report back information to the top. Instead, move authority to information. What he means is move authority of decision-making to the front line, to the staff, to all employees. Equip all of us that we can make our own wisest, best decisions every day. I find this very clever, and there is also multiple talks by the captain on how he changed the language and the conversations in his submarine to engage the task, engage his staff in thinking together and making decisions. And it was a nuclear submarine, so hats off to him. And why this authority to make decision would then really matter is that we would like to focus on value delivery, the pace of innovation. So who is this frontline staff? Well, we should look at who are the people who create value in our organization, hopefully all of us, but who are those of us who face customers? And often we call this activity the value stream map, where we can walk back the route from the customer, for those of us facing customers in our organization, to then who do we interact with, who are our other colleagues. And walking back from the customer, we can reach all the people who contribute to a specific service or a product. And this technique could be called mapping out our service domains or value streams. And ideally, we don't just do this from an architectural or IT perspective, but really a holistic business perspective. And for each of us, we have a main customer. Who is that external customer or customer group that we are serving? And then how could we deliver value to these customers in smaller, semi-autonomous teams? Because nowadays, often we, as one person, can't do this anymore. We can't do everything or know everything and deliver end-to-end service. We often need to work in teams. In sociocracy, which is one of the foundational pillars on how can we decentralize decision-making, it's both a methodology and a system and a mindset, we talk about principles, and focusing on value delivery is one of the principles. And here is some detailed guidance on freeing up individuals and teams to create value as autonomously as possible, so that they can deliver value fast and avoid unnecessary dependencies. And for this to really build autonomy, we will need to look at how can we not only give decision-making rights, but of course, even change our infrastructure and architecture. To bring this to life from an organization I highly respect, and maybe you have heard about them, Buurtzorg, a nursing and community healthcare organization in the Netherlands, we can imagine an organization with more than 14,000 employees who have 900 self-managing semi-autonomous teams. Each team is placed in a district in the Netherlands and is serving the local community. Providing healthcare and well-being services and really putting the patients at the center of their service. What is really interesting about creating an organization like this is that Buurtzorg started with 4 people, with 1 nursing team. And how did they manage to scale without having a heavy headquarter or heavy hierarchy? They nowadays have 900 teams and 50 people, only 50 in the headquarter, out of which 15 colleagues are coaches. And coaches can be called by the teams if they have conflict or some development needs that they cannot resolve themselves. When you watch this video later, if you are interested, I can send you again the links. As a small team, the nursing lady on the picture says, as a small team, we are usually on the same page. So it's really important to give people autonomy to provide an end-to-end service within a small team to their customers. And wherever possible, we should strive to do this and keep our organization simple. The founder, Jos de Bock, also talks about simplifying the bureaucracy, avoiding all the unnecessary reporting that these teams need to serve, because it's not about the internal reporting that doesn't create value. It's all about the customer for whom we want to create value. How an organization starting with one team can grow to multiple teams, and if we are a large organization, how we could organize differently. I would like to talk about this fractal structure of working through growing teams and autonomous teams. So when Buurtzorg reaches more than 12 people on a team, they split the team. And you see on the right-hand side something we call the peach organization structure. The outer layer are all those teams who are facing the customers, in their case, the nursing teams, and they have 900 of them. And in the middle of the organization, in your headquarters or centralized function, you may have some internal service teams. These could be your training teams, people and culture teams. It could be an IT or an infrastructure team, which helps you support your internal teams to be effective and efficient. And in Buurtzorg case, also they apply a lot of automation and IT and data systems to help teams who are customer-facing make better decisions. They call it an internal IT system. This is a trend I see with lots of companies, that we invest in our internal decision-making systems, AI even, and automation, to empower teams to have better data about customers, about market opportunities, and just unleash them to make their own decisions. And we will talk later in this presentation also, of course, it's not enough that data holds these teams together, but of course this organization is very tied into their purpose, their shared vision to prevent preventative healthcare, so prevent diseases, to improve the well-being of their local community, and to be accessible to all the people in Netherlands. So I'm going to take some breath and then move on. So we have spoken about team structure, but right now we can also, of course, accept that not all decisions will be local to a team. There will be, unfortunately, some decisions which will be having a big impact and also will be quite risky. We will now visit Amazon and tap into their wisdoms, and they often talk about two types of decisions, these two type of categories. The first one is called the one-way door decisions, and the other is the two-way door decisions. And Jeff Bezos also blogs about this. One-way door decisions are those that we need to recognize, and here we need to spend time, use diversity, wisdom of crowd, multiple perspectives, and actively try to remove our bias. These decisions could have a big impact, could be not reversible. On the micro scale, this could be about laying off people, but it could be also about office building or office locations, factory locations, or installing some very expensive equipment. Here, as said, take your time. And I have multiple stories where these decisions are not only impactful, but also complex. And for one-way door decisions, a practice which I would also recommend is to keep our options open. Often we would evaluate multiple options, and these take time before we settle on the final option, because it's not reversible or not easily reversible decision. On the other hand, in order to make decision-making easy, we also need to recognize that in a large organization, 90% of decisions are reversible, and they can be sliced and diced into smaller bets. So they can be broken up into smaller problems and smaller decisions. Maybe you can think with me about some examples that you face day to day, which are actually reversible decisions, or you can make them into those. So decisions that have a lower stake, that can be easily reversed, that may only impact 1 or 2 or a small percentage of your customers. If you are a global organization, you may launch a product with a new feature only to one city or one location. And if it's a digital product, you can customize what percentage of your users get access to these new product versions. Thereby, you would manage risk and make decision-making much easier for your employees. It's all about creating the infrastructure, the culture, and also the practices to make our decisions small, reversible, and have the infrastructure to do so. We know very well that Amazon runs lots of A/B tests on their website, constantly testing wording, positioning, and also even colors of buttons. That's what we call optimization. These are micro decisions, especially easy to do in a digital sector. So making decisions small, great, but for whom and how to then use these decisions to deliver value. So for a moment then, we will come back to employees as entrepreneurs. And this is another story, which is very fascinating. And there is a lot to learn from Asian companies. In this case, it's a Chinese company, Haier, originally from Qingdao. And many of you know they are also famous in their leadership and organizational development methodology, because they are quite a radically different, courageous organization in their decision making. So in 1984, the current CEO, Zhang Ruimin, used to run and actually turn around the refrigerator company, the original Haier, based in Qingdao, a bigger city in China. And the company had lots of problems. There were so many quality problems that these were impacting the customers and also the reputation. And it's a famous story that he went into the factory and asked all employees to just get a hammer in the hand and destroy all the current products because the defect rate was so high, really demotivating. And then delivered the speech that we need to improve quality, and he will need help from all employees to do that. And they started their learning and transformation journey. And nowadays, Haier entered into other industries, and this really Internet of Things company really tapped into the digital age, and how they organize will be super interesting to see. In order to move so fast and change their industry and change all their products and value propositions, Haier had to create entrepreneurs from their employees. Had to think radically differently and also lead differently. So we will look at, and these were the results of millions of small bets. So really, this is one story of a company which is closest to a nervous system, a network of small teams, in their case, not 900, but 3,000 teams. And they even call these semi-autonomous teams micro-enterprises, because they have their own budget, profit and loss statement, and they are responsible, each team, for their own business outcomes. Each team measures their own customer satisfaction, track their impacts, sustainability, and other impacts, and in general, improve it. And these days, Haier is even investing in co-innovation with their customers and blockchain, so smart contracts. They really co-innovate with their customers and also share the rewards. Super interesting story. But think about if all of us would be really empowered to experiment in small teams with our customers, use our brains like a distributed intelligence. What could our organizations become? Powerhouses of innovation. And of course, there is some centralized support or service teams as well in Haier. What is also very interesting, if you work in these roles, imagine that in Haier's case, they have created pricing for these internet teams. And now also these teams need to compete or be on market rates and also in service quality competitive. So for example, if you are in marketing, Haier teams would only contract your services if you are competitive, both in quality, pricing, and delivery. So very interesting, that also keeps their service teams or support teams very much up to date and on edge. So lessons again on the two doors. Remember that in order to unleash decision making, we need to think really small and at scale, where each of us can place these small bets, and somewhere our metaphor for these organizations will need to become more like a distributed brain or a nervous system, a global nervous system if possible. And here we have also the quote from Jeff Bezos on governance. I will let you read the beginning of the statement and focus on the last sentence. Why would we need anything more than the lightest weight approval process for those two-way door decisions? So really, we hear a CEO and a manager thinking about the lightest way governance possible. And I would like to inspire you with this talk of multiple ways we could orchestrate this lightest weight governance. Is there even governance needed, or can people self-govern themselves? In light of big challenges in terms of ethics and leadership in the world, I think some way of governance is still necessary until we evolve ourselves and can really self-govern, all of us. But really orchestrating for lightest way governance and not being in the way for decision making for people. One example is actually from the UK. It's a smaller IT company called Happy, Henry Stewart being the CEO. He uses something we call the pre-approval process. And he effectively advocates for his people that you can approve someone's solution or idea before they come up with it. So it's almost think about like a safety net or some boundary agreements that we put in place, guidelines, budget, budgetary limit, who needs to be consulted, to have a sort of pre-approval that makes it safe for people to make their own decisions and also safe for the organization. And we will look at examples in a moment. This is perhaps the least beautiful slide I have, but I kept it because it might resonate with those of you in agile organizations. What we just heard about pre-approval is what we often forget to clarify. For those of us who coach teams or management in agility, we need to focus a little bit around the boundary agreements between the rest of the organization and these semi-autonomous teams. I call them agile teams because they can help the organization deliver value fast and early, incrementally, and help the organization adapt. This semi-autonomous team has very clear boundaries, and here is an example in terms of budgetary boundaries. For example, they are given a budget per quarter. They can spend it, no questions asked. CapEx and OpEx budget. Of course, next conditions will detail what is expected in return. The team's purpose will be to deliver reusable and quality products or services to customers, ideally every day, in line with organizations' goals, missions, values, and standards. And the teams also need to advocate and live transparently. They need to measure their performance and also publish this performance on customer, market feedback, sustainability impact, and so on. And when we set up these semi-autonomous teams, we may follow the patterns of roles. We may not have them. In the Agile community, we often allocate two roles within teams. One is the product owner role. And this product owner role is delegated the decision-making authority on what the team should build within the budget. And they are also responsible for maximizing the customer and the business value delivered by the team. So every decision they make, they need to balance these to maximize value. The Scrum Master role, also commonly found in Agile teams, is a facilitator and responsible for improving the performance of the team, the collaboration, but also the well-being of the team, and often serves as a coach for the team and stakeholders. And the Agile team is responsible for self-organizing, making all the other decisions on the how, the day-to-day tasks, the collaboration between the team and stakeholders, and also the customer interactions, how they deliver their best work while staying motivated, while staying empowered, and maximizing speed and quality of value to customers. This is a genius one. If you do have boundary agreements already documented for your teams and regularly revised with your managers or other teams around this structure, well done. If not, this could be a big opportunity because self-organization happens within these agreed boundaries. And indeed, now I will challenge you. After such complex slide, we will look at boundaries set in a different way, but very clearly. I had the chance to be working with one of my client teams in the beautiful mountains of Switzerland a few weeks ago. And we spent 2 days in Chateau Form's premises, maybe in this same village. And what is really amazing about the leadership of this organization, who runs retreat centers and team offsite locations in Europe, is that the CEO, the chairman, says, you are given free rein to satisfy our clients, whatever the cost, and without having to ask for permission from anyone. Effectively, through empowerment from the chairman, all employees of this organization can do what they think is best for their customers. And being there in this location, I could really feel we were also encouraged to use their premises. We had a team event there, and just say or ask for what we need, but also do what's right for us. So it was absolutely fantastic. And here what we see is a boundary agreement, which is really just tied to purpose of the organization, being very clear to all employees, priorities and values. And we can sense that client satisfaction is one of their priorities, absolutely. And we can see how we can set clear boundaries for teams to make their own decisions if we have really strong culture and a strong understanding of lived values. And here are a few of Chateau Form's values. I encourage you to go to their website. It's beautiful also to read the detail. I really love this one. Undertake, be proactive, daring, show initiative, do what's right. This is what the chairman also spoke about. Really focuses on people making their own decisions. And it's also about contribution, love for your customers, and rigor and performance. So this could be also a boundary agreement if you can create an environment for your teams where they can self-manage their actions and decisions based on clear values and agreed principles. So just challenging, going from the very detailed agreements to a more generous and trusting one. So then some techniques. For the third group who likes Excel files or visualization, I have some technique here that you could use also to clarify delegation and decision making as on a role-by-role basis. And here we will use the cards, which is a downloadable game you can download for free from Management 3.0, which effectively says that when we distribute decision-making power, we often shift decision from one person, here a manager, telling the team or the rest of the organization what to do. But in relation to the team, the manager has the choice to sell their idea. That's already level 2. So as to say why they are making this decision. They may consult the team, but ultimately decide themselves. They may agree with the team, with whichever agreement process they use. And level 5, 6, 7 is more on the delegation scale. They may advise the team, but let the team make decisions. Let the team make decision level 6 and inquire why they made the decision or how they made it. And level 7 to fully delegate and trust the team that they will make the right decisions. And we will see that this scale will depend on many things: the manager, their team, and also competencies, risks, and situations. Depending on the type of decision that the team needs to make, there will be a different level of empowerment. And the question is how to start. So we will use this technique in a few steps. I will recommend that knowing that the main purpose of our existence is to create value through our communities, create value for our customers, so it's about value delivery, you could reflect after this webinar tomorrow with your team, with some sticky notes or a paper and pen to list what are those blocking or slow bureaucratic decisions that might take a while in your environment and might slow down your team to deliver value. Could it be about budgeting or funding release? It could be about product or feature development decisions, everything about the team's internal working, team hiring, tooling, learning and development, or perhaps also technical decisions like architecture or testing and verification, or go-to-market release decisions. These categories, in my own experience, are all very relevant to look into and improve our governance around. Once you listed these critical decisions, we will come back to the delegation poker, and we will use this template, which is also downloadable. In a simple Excel file, if you are a delivery or project manager and you have set up a semi-autonomous team focused on building a product or a service, then you can map out these situations you just listed before in the left-hand side of the canvas, and you can currently map out how you currently make your decisions. For example, in the first row, we see you may consult the team on how much budget they would need for next year. But ultimately, because you are the manager and you also link to other areas of the organization, you may still keep the decision making. That's level 3, about the total budget that the team will receive. Team member hiring, firing, you may already delegate to this quite mature and well-performing team who has made and been involved in hiring before. You may trust them and just advise some of your observations about candidates or roles, but let them decide who they hire or let go of. For example, that's a level 5. After you have mapped out your current state, you can then move and challenge yourself. And often I would encourage that you do this with the team, because it's not about delegating or pushing more power to your team. It's also about the team being able to take that power and really wanting to, or being curious to take part more in those decisions. So here, really using this technique, you can start having the conversation. Could you move up, and would the team want to take more responsibility or participate more in these decisions? And indeed, what boundary agreements or policies would you need to put in place to make it safe for the team to make these decisions with more involvement on their side? Would it be additional training that they need, coaching, support, or even technical support, data and infrastructure, or context, and so on? I believe this is a fantastic process. I've used it with senior architects designing worldwide international telecom billing systems. I've used this delegation board and delegation poker technique for a voluntary organization where we were running global conferences, agile conferences online around the world. The organizing team used this to be able to make fast decisions before of the project and later also during the project. We reviewed how could be clearer who and how will make what decisions on our team. And also beware of the agreement. The agreement of a team is very, very tricky, and there are multiple ways to form agreements. When you need to agree, look at different ways. Majority vote could be one process when you need a quick decision. Sometimes this majority vote could be all about rolling a dice and going with it, maybe low impact, low risk decisions. Consensus, only with caution, only in cultures for example, Sweden, where it's necessary, but really consensus, setting jokes aside, for important decisions where it would be really important, for example, ethics or organizational values, that everyone can be behind those values that you agree on. For other small bets and type 2 or two-way door decisions we spoke about, reversible small decisions, consensus would be an overkill. There is a deadlock situation where we keep discussing for hours or weeks, and in that time we could have built experiments, released that product version, and gather data which way to go. I recommend that you read about or try out the advice process. This is where each individual could decide on certain topics as long as they seek expert advice. For example, hiring. I could decide who to hire to our team as long as I pair up or seek advice from our local HR colleagues. Consent process is very useful when your decision might impact others at a larger scale, where more employees, stakeholders, and even customers could be impacted, higher risk decisions. And here we will look at an example in the next slide. And this process is also described in the Sociocracy 3.0 platform. It is a process to make decisions which might impact a lot of stakeholders, but do them safely and fast anyway. So we will go ahead with the consent-based decisions when there is an absence of reasons not to. So when there are no objections to a proposed way forward on a decision, we will seek, obviously, a wide range of people who might be impacted and can opt in to participate in this process. If they raise no material objection that we cannot resolve, then we simply go ahead. And for every material objection raised, we will be grateful because it's about risk management. So using this process in high-risk regulated industries or also where human life might be in danger could be a very good one. And it also develops the team's risk management capabilities. Okay, we have seen a lot of techniques on how you can get started. And now I promise a few easier ones before we wrap up and open for some quick questions. It's all about how we actually interact when we make decisions in the detail in the day-to-day. I would like to also recommend this book by David Marquet, Leadership is a Language, because if you think about your day-to-day meetings with your colleagues, interactions, and in your conversations in your community, avoid being the overpowering voice in the room. Right now, I am overpowering. I am presenting, talking quite a bit. But we see in this image that our meetings should not be presentations. Our meetings should be dialogues, discussions, and the voice should be better distributed. And often we also will find some gender biases in the room or other biases, diversity biases that could be at play of how we could be overpowering. So always check for feedback and become aware if you use too much space. A set of techniques that many of you might have heard about already is facilitation techniques. There is a fantastic app and a list of structures called Liberating Structures for people to organize their meetings, their interactions in a way that they can distribute the voice in meetings. One of the simplest liberating structures is 1, 2, for all. And I use it all the time on meetings. We take 1 minute for each participant on a meeting to think individually, quietly, about an idea. And 1 minute can be a really good, valuable pause to harvest ideas. Then we might go into a breakout room if we are online and debrief our ideas, share them in pairs, and select or merge into a better idea. And then we may pair up 2 pairs into 4, so 1, 2, 4, and again share, merge, discuss our ideas. And the 1, 2, 4 all, at the end, each group of 4 people will share back what they learned from a rich conversation where everyone was involved. And then we select our next steps, usually with another structure. So also from the liberating structure space, one mega pattern for interaction is invitation to an open space event. You see here a template. We often use this on Miro, where we invite people to craft their open agenda on a larger gathering. And often these open gatherings are about a change goal. Maybe we want to change our strategy or review our core company strategy. We gather in a room for 1 day. We have flip charts or a digital board like this, and we craft our agenda collectively. Often there is a facilitator, and often there is an invitation. What shall we talk about? What problems do we want to solve today? And it is really amazing how we can unleash people by participating. Everyone invited to participate in the topics they care about, the changes they want to lead, and really unleashing leadership. And last but not least, okay, I do come from a software background, a digital background, so I had to put this slide in. It would be amiss if we only used our human powers. We now need to pair up and use technology, data, artificial intelligence to complement us, to make us better. And here are some examples on how visual dashboards, automation, alerts, and reminders could really help us make better decisions. And really think about this for your autonomous teams. How would you rate yourself on empowering your team with data and technology to make better decisions? And which areas you could invest in? Last but not least, one of the latest projects I'm involved in is asynchronous working. We have too many meetings, the pace of work is ever increasing, and never enough time to think. So one last practice I would like to leave you with is if you can afford 1 day or 2 days to sit or sleep on a decision, then maybe you could try out asynchronous decision making. This also will lead to documenting your context, your proposal about a possible decision, and then asking written feedback, asking people to sleep on it, to digest it, really pacing out a bit the interaction that would otherwise happen very quickly on meetings or on gatherings. And if people have enough time to consider their answers, to gather data, to also tap into their intuition and feelings, then you will get better quality outcomes from this process. And the decision will have higher support and higher likelihood to succeed. With all of this, I would like to wrap with 2 invitations for you. I mentioned in the beginning, I'm very excited to have so many of you here watching this talk and being so interested in the topic. I think governance around decision-making and standing up for our right to participate is a great opportunity to unleash ourselves, our communities, our interactions. First invitation is for those of you who are experienced facilitators, digitalists, community makers to, if you are interested, to join me in co-hosting or co-designing a masterclass on decision making. I work with a number of organizations in this topic, and it would be really interesting to experiment with you how we can improve capabilities in this area. The second one is, if you represent a team or an organization, I would be delighted to craft some experiments to work on this capability with you. So please contact me on LinkedIn if you are interested, and I will respond with my email address to your messages. And with this, I think we are, if there are still colleagues online with us, we are ready to tap into your questions, reactions. Thank you so much also for the detailed comments. I will read through all of them.
So we have a bunch of comments here on the right side of your screen as well, I think, Andrea. Mm-hmm. Also, not just questions, but also comments. There's one question by Michele. I don't know if he's still on, and he's wondering about Elon Musk's decision making and the motivation process. And then he rewrites that into motivational process. So, well, I don't know. I do not know Elon Musk. Maybe you do know. You know him personally. I don't know. And do you want to respond to that?
Not yet personally, but this is where, the ethics come in terms of, how much to unleash people or gamify decision making, that gamification could become addictive or even pressurized. I had the opportunity to go to an amazing talk by Joe Justice. Many of you might know him, who used to coach in the automotive industry and is still coaching and also worked with Tesla companies. He did share that the culture internally is a tough one. And there is an expectation to work hard, and there is the danger of, over engaging people. So, where are the limits of over motivating or even pressuring people to that environment? Joe talked about, however, that Tesla companies, factories in particular, are set up with so much data and automation, and also like freedom when you enter in your workday to choose where you want to work, that it is a bit like being addicted to making a difference. It is gamified to the extent that employees can really feel they are making a difference and feel connected to the work. Yeah. So, but thank you for the comment, and we all have the responsibility to put the right guardrails around this topic.
We're getting some thanks from Ada and Alistair Curry as well. And do you want to take another one? I've got another comment, maybe to look. Mm-hmm. I've got one here from Anna Maria Cinco, and she's giving an example of it for a two-way door. Before buying expensive books, she'll go to the library to borrow the book and then check if it's really worth it. I like that. Even after buying the book, I can sell it later or give it to the library. Well, yeah, there you go.
Absolutely. I am an avid book reader, and thanks, Anna-Marie, also for sharing one of your books with me. I hope it wasn't a two-way door experiment. I hope you liked it. I know you liked it. It was on motivation theory. Thank you.
I've got another one here from Russ Lewis, the Agilizer. He would like to contribute a book extract on decision-making for Agile managers to add to your offer to explore this topic. Okay, cool. So,
thank you. Lovely offer taken, Russ.
We'll find them. And then I have this one from Bartosz. First, organizations did not make good decisions. They choose a solution provider by hippo decision. The org tried 10, 20 different things. And this is actually, I should start in the other way, because I'm making a mistake here, because Bartosz sent another comment, and it's all connected. So he had friends in two companies. One had very deliberate approval processes and very expensive, and the other one was allowing engineers to decide themselves as long as it wasn't for a long-term binding decision. The first organization made good decisions. They chose solution providers by hippo decision. The other tried 10 to 20 different providers in a month to select it.
Thank you, Bartosz. What you shared resonates with me. And indeed, we haven't spoken about technique, which is when we face this big commitment, one-way door decisions, indeed about some costly suppliers or some costly infrastructure, we can still pilot or test our collaboration with shorter-term contracts and multiple options. I have seen it in a large organization when we went through the cloud providers and data hosting challenges, and going through a structured decision-making process with a criteria on how we will evaluate multiple suppliers. What are those criteria that engineers and business people can collaborate on? But it wasn't a hippo decision, as you described. We set the criteria and then we let people test out multiple options.
Perfect. Great. I don't have any other comments, I think. No.
An absolutely fabulous turnout today. I'm very grateful for all your comments, participation, and also after this session, live session, if you have questions, will colleagues be able to add them to the chat? Possibly you will be able to add them to the chat. If not, feel free to reach out to me after this session. And thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Wonderful. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.